Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Rabil Stock Research. So I'm going to run through a lesson on ADX exhaustion. Looks like the market has reached this exhaustion phase on its daily chart. I want to go through the details on this because I think it's relevant. Even though the market keeps pushing higher, I think it's relevant to know kind of what the backdrop is. Once we do that, I'm going to go through all the market conditions on the S&P, and then we'll look at some individual stocks that requests that came through, and then I'm going to give you a couple of ideas that I've got. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. All right, I'm looking at the S&P 500 chart. I'm going to zero in on the daily right now. All right, and I want to show the importance of price over indicators. All right, I look at a lot of indicators. Obviously, I look at the MACD, I look at ADX. In fact, I want to zero in on the ADX here. But I just want to make sure you're clear that we use price to determine when we do something. All right, this is supporting evidence. The ADX, the MACD, even the volume is supporting evidence to what we're seeing in the price and the moving averages as well. So when we look at this, we've made this move. And if you look at the price pattern and if you look at the price structure, it's been doing nothing but making higher highs and higher lows. We have not made a lower low yet in the move. All right. We have shown a late start. So if you notice the way this got kicked off and made a move to the upside, essentially in May and June, we had very little participation from an ADX standpoint, meaning very little confirmation from that standpoint. But then we finally kicked in late June, early July, and we got a confirming move in the ADX. And at that point, I even kind of considered it to be really probably not that strong of a signal. And if you look at the way it's played out, it really hasn't gone very far from that point. I mean, but the structure state has been fine. The structure is intact, but it's not like it's made a powerful move. So from the point that's confirmed, basically here, we have not made that big of a run. I mean, we've gone up a lot, and gone up a lot from a standpoint of timing, right? We've been up for 2 or 3 months, but in terms of how far it actually went, I wouldn't say it's really gone very far. Now, if you notice the way this played out, this is where it becomes a little bit more important, where you get a move to the upside and you actually have confirmation in the momentum, all right? So this is confirmation. We didn't have it back here. Here we have confirmation in the momentum, and then we pull back, we make another high. We have confirmation in the momentum that was not quite as strong. And then we make another push to another new high. And again, we don't really get confirmation this time. In late August, we do not confirm the move. All right, and now we're actually pushing again, and the ADX is even lower, down in the low 20s. All right, so what do we make of this? Well, what I've been saying from the beginning of this is that we have to focus on price, and price is going to determine if this signal is going to play out or not. All right. So don't assume just because we have this divergence pattern in place, which is pretty important, the way it's developed, it doesn't mean it can play out that. It can play out one of two ways. It could break the 18-day and turn that 18-day over, and then we should be looking for a reversal and a full-blown test of maybe 6,000, maybe even a little bit lower. Or we could have a little bit of a surging move to the upside. All right. And ADX actually looks like it's confirming when it's really just a climax pattern. All right. So those are a couple ways this could play out, but we have to watch the price action to determine that. And the reality is we have not had a signal we have not had a price signal yet. Even though we've had a lot of signs of maybe momentum loss or not confirming, we haven't had a signal where the 18-day is clearly broken and rolls over. Once that happens, then I think you have to be a lot more defensive, at least for the intermediate term. I still think from a bigger picture standpoint, this thing looks okay. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and also subscribe. So I'm on the services page of RabilStockResearch.com. At the top, you can see I've got my advanced trend and momentum courses. There's 3 different courses. You can get a discount if you buy them all as a bundle. They are lifetime access now, all right? And also, the individual package has about 3 to 4 reports that come each week, plus a special video for that package. And I also do a once-a-month webinar that is very popular with the subscribers. So you can take a look there. If you're interested in just getting started, you can go up to the top and hit the book. This will give you information on the book. It gives it get you started on the approach. My comments are for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investments. All right, so I've got my weekly market condition sheet on the left, and I'm going to go through all the individual price chart patterns that support this information in a minute, but I'll just run through this real quick. The sentiment did jump up a little bit. Again, I use the Investors Intelligence Sentiment Survey. It went from 37% more bulls to 38% more bulls. We're still negative here, and we're overbought. I use an RSI 5 here. You can see on the weekly chart, it's up to 81. So both of these I would consider to be short-term. This is like a short-term negative. The bias is in the background is a little bit negative, all right? Now, on balance, we've got a lot of positives behind this in the trend, the momentum, and the volatility. So I'm more inclined to believe any kind of a pullback is more of a constructive thing, a positive. It would be a pullback in an ongoing trend rather than some kind of a big reversal setting place. All right. Now, the one fly in the ointment here is the daily momentum, which I just showed is in an exhaustion phase on the ADX. All right, so that's good enough for me to put this in the negative camp. Everything else is still okay. I would say the weekly momentum is maybe a little bit more suspect. It could be in the neutral camp, but it hasn't done anything wrong. And until we see sellers, I don't think there's anything to change there. All right, so we've got this. I'm going to run through each one of these now individually. So we've got again, RSI 5, which is showing a little bit of a divergence because this is making a higher high up here while we're making a slightly lower high in overbought territory, right? But if we look at the average true range, the average true range is dropping and it's below its moving average. So whenever I see this is a positive. This means the volatility is dropping. So I care more about whether it's rising or falling and not the level of it. All right. And right now it is falling. So in that case, I think the condition is positive. We also have had a long-term situation here really since April, maybe May, where we've been declining on the daily. The volatility has been dropping. All right. So if you notice, we have an uptrend in price and we have a declining volatility. That's a really good situation. That means we're looking to buy pullbacks and play along. We've had a lot of dips along the way. Look at all these periods where the RSI 5 dropped down since we turned things around and got the trend going. Now, I do want to go through the individual time frames. We've got and I'm using the spider for this part of the analysis. I like to look at live trading vehicles. So you can see what's taken place. We had the big dip here that closed back above the 18, and then we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months to the upside. All right, we're getting a little stretched away from this 18-month line. I mean, it certainly could use some kind of a breather, but it might not happen until it's ready to really correct. All right, now let's look at the weekly chart, because this is the other one that I think is showing signs of concern, I would put it. All right, so off the low, we made this pretty good move in price, right? We made a nice move. But look at green DI. That's a sign. This is basically telling us what the buyers are doing. The buyers have been making higher highs and higher lows until July, all right? And then in July, we made a lower high and then another lower high, right? And we keep making lower highs. Even though the price is moving higher, we're not seeing this confirm. So the buyers are tired up here. They're saying that they might not be willing to really pay up for prices. But what's missing, and again, I'm going to expand this for a second. What's missing are the sellers. We're still not seeing any sellers show up. The red line represents the sellers. And we're going to need to see this red line break above this prior peak here and move up and really kind of shift things to show that there are some sellers in place. If we get that, then I think we get the full-blown correction. We come back and test this support area again somewhere around 600, 620 in the SPY. So right now we are showing a lack of buying strength, but we haven't shown any sellers yet. So I really like the way the ADX indicator can divide all this up. I go into a lot of detail in the course on how to understand how to read all these things. All right, these are very important to understand because they give you information on the buyers, the sellers, and the overall trend. All right. So let's take a hard look again at the at the daily chart. We continue to make higher highs and higher lows, and I continue to say a break of the 18-day is a close below that, and then we take out the low of that bar. If we do that, then we have confirmation that there's a trend shift in place. Let's switch over to the my other chart grid, which is a monthly in the bottom left, weekly bottom right, daily in the upper right, and then a weekly in the upper left with the relative strength and the RSIs set up there. But I do want to take a quick look and run through a few things. Let's just take a hard look at what's taking place. We got this little heat map here, and you can see what's happening. A huge day for large cap growth, up 1.38%. Value is actually down almost 0.5%. All right. So I want to point this out because I think this is really important as you go hunting for individual stocks. I'm going to zero in on this upper left-hand chart. Look at what's taken place in the relative strength of the value chart, right? Relative to the S&P. We've been trending lower now, and it's been almost a 2-year period. Well, actually, I take it it's been over a 2-year period where that has been taking place. All right. We need to be aware of that because as you go looking for individual stocks, you got to know this, right? Now, look, if I look at the mid cap value, it's the same thing. If I look at small cap value, it's the same thing. But here's where it gets even more interesting. If I go to mid cap growth, it's still in the same camp. For the most part, it's been underperforming since 2021. And then small cap growth has also been underperforming since 2021. We have not seen a shift. This is very rare to have this take place, where we essentially have a small group of stocks essentially that are making a pretty big difference in that large cap growth area. I wouldn't say it's just focused in on 5 stocks, but it's a smaller list. It's a smaller list, obviously, because we can go through all these others and look at everything, whether it be value in the mid cap area or small cap area or large cap area, and most of those names are underperforming. Now, it doesn't mean you can't find a stock that looks attractive in the large cap growth area. There were actually a decent amount of them that look pretty attractive, but you're going to be hard pressed to find, if you're buying an ETF or something like that that represents those. It looks to me like it's early. It just has not kicked in yet. All right. Let's take a quick peek at a few things. So first of all, the 10-year bond, the 10-year yields have gone sideways here. I still think this is a pause and an ongoing trend. All right. This is not a reversal of the trend. This is actually a pause. And I think if we can get through the 5 level, it might not happen until early next year or late this year or something like that. I think if we can break through the 5 level, then we could be going up a whole nother leg to the upside, regardless of what the short-term rates do, right? We could have short-term rates drop, but I think these longer end ones have an upward bias to them. All right. And then look at what's going on with gold. Look at this move in gold and silver even. This is dynamic, and a lot of these stocks have broken out and started to show good momentum characteristics associated with them. And then finally, let's just take a look at Bitcoin. Same concept, strong move, good momentum behind it, good relative performer. Hasn't shown any real signs of distribution yet. I think there's a pretty good chance this wants to push higher from here. Ultimately, it might take a breather first, but the momentum signs and the trend and everything look pretty good right now. Okay, let's go through some individual stocks. Actually, we'll start with the IWM. Just to show, again, on a relative basis, it's been underperforming since 2021. We need this to turn up. If this turns up, we're going to see all in that heat map shift. That entire heat map will shift, and it'll show a lot of improvement in those areas other than large cap growth. So I think that's why we got to continue to watch that. All right. All right. Now we're going to go through some symbol requests that came through. I think this is pretty dynamic what's taking place in Home Depot. Pretty strong move to the upside. Look at the momentum characteristics of this move. When you look at it on a daily, it went sideways and then broke out. Look at the ADX confirming that, and even MACD making a strong new high. We're going to need a little bit of a pullback, and I'd like to see it pull back closer to 400, maybe even under that a little bit, and really set up on the weekly chart, and then we could buy it off the daily. So what I teach in my courses, in my book, is we've got 2 time frames. This is the pullback, right? And then we're looking for an opposing trend pattern to develop on this time frame. We're waiting for that to take place. The momentum conditions are good enough. We need a pullback to show this, but I think we're going to need it to pull back on the weekly chart. All right. NVO, it's trying to turn around. I know this has been beaten up, but look at the pattern: lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, all lower highs and lower lows all the way throughout the low. We're going to need a shift in that. before we're really ready. And I would just be happy with a bull alert. That would be coming back up and making a higher high, right? If we can start that, then we might want to look at the next pullback. But until that shift takes place, or we see momentum shift, which is not taking place on the weekly, this is still showing a lot of strength to the downside. I think you need to be patient here and not jump the gun or anything like that. Okay, so OKLO made a pretty good move, but you can see this one thing I notice sometimes is when I see these tails forming on the wicks of the candlesticks, it just sort of tells me there's sellers up there. So I think there's sellers over 75 at this point. Now, the way this has worked it sideways and paused, I do kind of like. So if you were to play this, what the wicks are telling me, the wicks and the candlesticks are telling me that if you're going to play this, you got to play it more as a trader. I think I would play it as a trader. We're a little extended on the monthly chart. I'd like to see this pause and get going. If it does get going, then play it as a trade, a short-term trade over to say, the next couple weeks. Maybe makes it a month or two, something like that. But I wouldn't go any more than that if I'm looking at this. All right. HWM. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's improving. I think there's signs of improvement. We've got a pretty good momentum condition off the monthly move. It hasn't really kicked in on the weekly yet. I do see it on the daily. So I don't know. It's a tough one for me because it hasn't created a lot of space between the price and the 18-day. So I think this is going to have to break the 18-day and form an opposing trend trigger while this pulls back to the 18-week. All right. That'd be what I would be looking for. It would basically be buying the first breakout after the first pullback after the breakout of a low ADX pattern. All right, so look for it to come down to 40 or something like that. No, I'm sorry, not 40. Let's look at this. Right in the 44 area, 43, 44, and I think that might be somewhat intriguing. All right, QCRH. I like the lift off the monthly chart with a little bit of volume. You can see the volume pattern showing signs of improvement. Again, it's sort of an awkward pattern because of the way it played out. I like to see a little push away from the moving average and then buy a pullback. We don't really have that here. We had it on the daily chart, but then you're trading it really short term just over the next few days. So I'm less inclined on this. I want to see this push up a little bit more and then maybe play a pullback is how I would look at it. If you're looking at it from a long-term standpoint, again, I think you need to make a push to the upside and then make a higher low. You could have played this already, I guess, if you wanted to play it the test of the 18, but we haven't had momentum confirmation yet on the weekly. I would say I would be watching for the next pullback here. QURE, it is intriguing me, I have to admit. It's a biotech, and they're tough. Those are tough to trade. But I would tell you that the overall pattern does look pretty good. It's a low ADX pattern on the weekly, and it's a low ADX pattern on the daily that's starting to emerge. So you could take this and look for a higher low. See if you don't get you did already get a confirming signal on the weekly RSI, but maybe get one now off the daily. And I think if you get that based on the way it's set up, it looks pretty good. I would be somewhat intrigued from that. I really like this ROK. These are the ones that I highlighted this week for everybody. All right, look at what's going on. Look at this big sideways block, this rectangular pattern that has developed. And then we had an undercut pattern that just knifed down through all of this. So you can look at it on the monthly. We had this whole area here and we went down and took it out and shook everybody out. And then on a dime came racing right back up and made the higher low. All right, and look at how this is an orderly pause taking place above support. Really attractive pattern with improving relative strength, and it looks like it's setting up an RSI buy. But again, I would probably wait for this to break this little downtrend line here, and that would be really interesting. I think definitely one to watch from that standpoint. Now, Tesla I have brought up a few times, and the way I'm looking at this is that we have to get through this resistance area up here. I don't want it to be, if I'm having to really take a hard look at this to know that it's broken out, like if I have to squint to see that it's broken out, then I don't want to do it. I want to see a monster green bar with really good volume and improvement in DI, breakout, breakout, breakout everywhere. And I think if we get that from this consolidation pattern, I think it's game on and I would want to play it. All right. Last one is this ZM. This is a pretty interesting pattern the way it's played out as well. Kind of formed a little bit of an inverted head and shoulders pattern with a slightly downward slope to it, but still nice look. And we had a nice move off earnings. So now what we're looking for is a pullback here. See if this can't make a higher low and turn the corner. But nice base that's in place, and it really looks very close to turning to the upside. Thanks for joining me today. If you have any stock requests, you can send them to stocktalk@stockcharts.com or just put them in the comment area below. Also, if you want to learn more about some of these techniques like the ADX Exhaustion, you can go to my YouTube channel. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.